Coffee. I need to make coffee. Coffee.
No. 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 Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to my video about poetry. Now, poetry is a very, very beautiful art form. And as an English teacher, it kind of pains me to see how many of us are never really properly introduced to poetry. I think that poetry is something that tends to intimidate people because poets are often not very straightforward about what they're trying to tell you. You will read a poem and it's not going to be immediately clear what the poem is trying to say. And it's understandable that kind of scares a lot of people away. I know that it scared me away, and I didn't really get into poetry until I got an English degree. And most of us aren't going to go on to get English degrees. So what I'm going to attempt to do for you here in my class is to kind of show you the beauty in poetry, and that starts by knowing what to look for in a poem. Although poetry, you could argue about this, but I like to think poetry doesn't have that many rules. Poetry is all about breaking the rules of writing, actually. There are some things that poets do a lot, and if you're on the lookout for them, it's going to help you understand what the poet is trying to say to you. So let's check out this PowerPoint. I've got a few of those things in the list, and then I'll show you some examples of what that looks like in actual poetry. Now, I've called this PowerPoint Poetic Devices because a device in writing is a thing that you do, right? A device is kind of like a tool. Well, poetic devices, they're just sort of tools that poets use to make you feel something with their poetry, to say something to you. And these are just a few poetic devices. This is not a conclusive list by any means. There are so many cool things that poets do, but this is just a small short list to get you started. So the first, and one of my favorites, is called alliteration. Alliteration is when you repeat consonant sounds at the beginning of words. So consonants are, not vowels, A, E, I, O, U, not those. It's everything else in the alphabet. This example here is fast and furious, cool colors. They tend to be a bit harsher in terms of how they sound, but they are consonants, and when you repeat them at the beginning of words, that is alliteration. The next one is assonance, and this one is vowels, so A, E, I, O, U, vowels. That is when you repeat vowel sounds near each other. So the example that I put down here is bruise and loser. That vowel sound, the oo sound, both of these words have it in the middle, and they're put right next to each other. So bruise and loser. The words don't rhyme, but they do kind of sound like each other. The next one is consonants. And that is repeated consonant sounds at the end of words placed near each other. So we're back to consonants. That's everything that is not a vowel is a consonant. And the example that I put here, I lifted from The Great Gatsby, boats into the past. That t sound, boats into the past, that repeats at the end of the words. And all those words are near each other, therefore consonants. The next one is onomatopoeia, and that is a word that sounds like what it means. Boom, woof, buzz, zip, hiss. That is not only the word that describes what you're describing, it also sounds like the thing you're describing. Onomatopoeia. The next one is repetition, and that one is pretty self-explanatory. It's when people repeat things. That one is pretty self-explanatory. It's when people repeat things. Sorry. The example that I put here is a song lyric. Slide to the left, slide to the right. Crisscross, crisscross, cha-cha real smooth. There's a ton of repetition going on there. And the last one is another one that I'm sure you've heard of, rhyming, and that's words that ends with sounds that are very similar. Now, I just kind of threw a giant list of terms at you, and it's not going to make a ton of sense if you don't practice these terms. So for this video, I'd really recommend that if you're in my class, you look through the worksheet that I'm going to give you with all of these, or if you're not in my class and you're just watching these videos, I would pause and I would maybe take some notes, is what I would do. But what I'm going to do is we're going to walk over to the document camera and I will show you a poem that has a lot of these things in it, and we'll kind of talk about them and how they work in that example poem. Alright, so for our example, I've taken a John Mayer song called Gravity, and I've pulled the first 2 stanzas of the song. All of the devices that we've been talking about aren't in these 2 stanzas, but there are 4 of them, and so that's enough for me to show you what close reading poetry looks like. Now, I would play the song for you, but this is YouTube, and so I'm going to get a copyright strike, and the most I can get away with is playing like maybe 1 or 2 seconds of it. So here are 2 seconds of this song. It's beautiful, and you should totally listen to it. Anyway, here are the lyrics we're working with. First 2 stanzas of the song. Gravity is working against me, and gravity wants to bring me down. Oh, I'll never know what makes this man, with all the love that his heart can stand, dream of ways to throw it all away. There's a bit of a typo there. Whoa, gravity is working against me, and gravity wants to bring me down. Oh, twice as much ain't twice as good, and can't sustain like 1/2 could. It's wanting more that's going to send me to my knees. Now, the first thing that I want to point out to you guys that's going on in these lyrics is that there is a lot of assonance going on. Now, assonance, again, is when vowel sounds, so A, E, I, O, U, are in the middle of words. And you can see that here in the first line. Gravity is working against me, that A sound. It's down here in the next line too, again with gravity, but this time the assonance is with the word wants. Gravity wants to bring me down. Down here it's O and no. Oh, I'll never know. And then down here in the second stanza, we've got a double assonance going on in this first line here. So we've got the O sound in woe and the O sound in working. So woe, working. And we've also got it in gravity and against. Gravity, against. So these are both assonants, double assonants in that line right there. Beautiful. We've got it here again with gravity and wants. And if you notice, the vowel sounds that keep getting repeated are O and A. O, A, O, A. It kind of makes John Mayer sound like he's groaning. Makes him sound like he's in pain. He's hurting. He's trying to tell us with these lyrics that he's hurting, and he's using the words of the poem to kind of give us a very visceral sort of, like you can hear him groaning. O, A, O, A. So that's our assonance. The next one that I want to point out to you guys is alliteration. Now there's not as much alliteration as there is assonance in this song, but we've got a little bit of it here. We've got some on this line right here. His heart. And then again down here, to throw. You'll notice here in this line that is assonance. Woe, working. That's also alliteration. Although there are 2 words in between these, so it's not like a super intense alliteration, but I will consider it alliteration anyway. And that's kind of it. Now, the reason that poets do things like alliteration and assonance is they want to draw your attention to specific words. So what John Mayer is doing here is he is making us think about the words his heart and throw. And that's not a coincidence, guys, because the song is kind of about throwing your feelings and throwing your heart away. So he's drawing our attention to the words heart and throw. Throw your heart away. Now the next one is repetition. And we've got it going on down here in the second stanza with twice. So twice as much ain't twice as good. He says that line twice because he wants to drive that point home for us. Anytime a poet repeats something, it's because they want you to really think about it. Don't ever ignore repetition in the poem. And we've also got a little bit of kind of repetition going on here with ain't and sustain. Ain't, sustain, ain't, sustain. It's not exactly repetition because it's not the same word, but he's repeating that same sound. And it sounds a lot like the word pain. Ain't, sustain, pain. Again, he's going with those drawn out vowel sounds, the ah. It's like he's laying there on the floor crying, going, oh, ah, ain, pain. It's beautiful. And I don't know how many times I've said beautiful in this video. It's just a really pretty song, okay? And the last thing that I want to point out to you guys is the rhyming. There's not a ton of it going on, and it's mostly down here in the second stanza. So we've got good and could. That's a rhyme right there. And then me, knees, and me. Again, this is feeding into that image of John Mayer crying out in pain on the floor because he's talking about knees. He's rhyming me with knees to make us really think about knees. Now, why would you think about knees in the song about crying? It's because someone fell to their knees. Someone is sad, someone's upset, someone's feeling something intense. So all of these things I pointed out, and I'm sorry to gush so much about this song, it's just I really like this song. But all of these things here, these are all things that you can use to answer questions about this poem. So if you're going to sit down and do some analytical writing, if somebody asks you, what is the song Gravity by John Mayer? If we analyze it as a poem, what is it about? Your English teacher is going to want you to give all sorts of evidence, right? This is your evidence right here, guys. John Mayer is leaving a trail for you. And you can talk about all of these things when you sit down to analyze the poem. So this is where you start. When your teachers tell you to dig into something, this is what we mean. Just go searching. It's a little scavenger hunt for all these details and then see what interesting thoughts you can come up with all those details. So that's how you annotate a poem. And again, this example poem doesn't have all of the devices that I covered in the beginning half of the video. The problem is if I found this a poem long enough to have all of those devices in it, this video would go on for years. And you don't want that, and I don't want that. So I kept it simple with some John Mayer. Anyway, guys, that's my video. And I'm going to end it here. I'm not going to walk back to the usual set because I want to finish filming. So that's it. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you have a really good time annotating poetry. It's beautiful. Don't be intimidated. Poetry is waiting to bring you so much beauty. It's going to bring so much beauty into your life. Find the poet. Listen to the poet. Thanks for watching.